Continuing with our city election coverage, in less than a month, ballots begin arriving in mailboxes for Tucson's mayoral race. All four candidates told us they oppose the sanctuary initiative we explored earlier. We've featured interviews with the three Democrats on the primary ballot. Next month's winner will face independent Ed Ackerley in the general election. Ackerley is a longtime advertising executive in his first run for office. What would you say is the single biggest issue facing Tucson?
Roads. I think the one thing that comes up in every single event I go to is fix our roads. Our roads are in terrible shape, and so I think as mayor and council, that's the one thing that we have direct control over, the funds that come in, and I think that's the biggest issue on people's minds is fix the roads. I talk about it that it's the one thing that we all have in common. We all drive on the same roads and we all experience them every single day, and so it becomes a big issue. Other big issues, but that's the biggest one.
You're running as an independent. Why you? Why not the other guys?
Well, I think three things. One is my experience. Although I've never run for political office before, I would stack my resume up against anyone running for mayor, and the number of community groups and organizations that I've led over. Been in business for 44 years. I've wrote checks and had to balance a checkbook. So I think that the leadership side of my degree is in leadership, educational leadership. So I have a great leadership pedigree. Second thing I would say is that I'm born here, raised here, been here all my life, 60 years, and I've enjoyed a great life in Tucson, and I wanted to contribute something meaningful to that. And I think that experience over that time has given me a great insight into what Tucsonans want and what the area needs for the future. And third, I think it's time. I think people are looking for something different in politics. I think they've experienced a 7-0 Democrat council for the last several years. I think we've been turning a little bit left, and that's okay from time to time, but I think people are thinking now maybe we need to go forward instead of turning left. So those would be the three main reasons.
And that brings me to my next question. Because Tucson has historically been a Democrat-led council, how likely is it that someone like yourself could get into that position and bring everyone together to effect change?
Well, I do think that the council has been operating as a cohesive group because they have a 7-0 Democratic group together. But I think what's important is for us to look more regionally and look at the other municipalities that surround us. The RTA is a good example. Rio Nuevo is even a good example. Sun Corridor. I think that that what we can look for is collaboration, moving forward as a team, maybe looking at things from another perspective, maybe giving a little bit more business perspective on some of the priorities that the initiatives that we've had. I think I want to be the chief marketing officer of Tucson. I want to tell people why I chose to stay here for 60 years, why I want my grandchildren to live in a community that's wonderful and exciting and cutting edge, and I think that's what people are looking for is the future. What can we do to make sure that we point Tucson into the future? That's economic development, that's safety, that's transportation, that's water, that's all those municipal issues that we talk about.
How do you feel about sanctuary cities? Because there has been an attempt to see if it can be moved through in this community.
I believe that Tucson is a welcoming community and has been for hundreds of years. I do not agree with the initiative that's being floated that is perhaps to codify the fact that Tucson would become a sanctuary city. I think it does two things. One, it goes against the city charter, which we would have to change the city charter. I don't believe that's a good thing. And secondly, it, to coin a phrase, it handcuffs our local law enforcement officials to not interact with federal law enforcement officials, and that might be okay for a particular issue, but that's not good for the overall safety of our community. On a third point, I just think that once you say something like, we're this kind of a city, or we're this kind of a city, or the number one industry other than government in Tucson is tourism. And if we tell half of the community or half of the nation, by the way, don't come to Tucson because we're this kind of a city, we've then cut off the economic engine that pays for all the social services that helps us fund help for people that need it. So it's almost, it doesn't really make any economic sense to say that we're a sanctuary city, because then we're telling a lot of people that disagree with that not to come to Tucson. So I think we can do it in other ways. I think the Opportunity Center of Opportunity on Palo Verde is a good example of how we can come together as a community and solve these problems with immigrants and homelessness and so forth. And I don't think sanctuary cities is the answer.
Okay, Ed, thank you.
Thank you.
If you missed our interviews with the other candidates, you can find them all online at azpm.org/Arizona360. They shared their top priorities for the city of Tucson.